Thank you for joining me with my stitch with me. This is my third try at editing this video and hopefully it works this time. My issues have been, it has crashed several times. I did this video as well as the potion shop. This is Spirit of Autumn. I'm doing 3 threads over 1 stitch tent and it is on 20 Bellamy even weave. So I'd like to thank everybody that entered into my poll. It was quite exciting because I've got over 570 subscribers now. That meant that I was able to do a poll on the community tab, so that's quite exciting, and it was interesting to see what people wanted to see me stitch on. I'm not sure if this will even save. If it does, I'll upload this one and then I will record Potion Shop again and I'll upload that one. I think my issue could be that the video was an hour long. I've cropped it right down to become half an hour, and with doing both videos hopefully it'll become an hour long. I won't add them in together, I'll do one after another. So thank you to all my subscribers, you have been amazing. I can't believe that I have got so many subscribers. I am at, I think it's 65% on this. I'm not quite sure because I cropped it, but I think I did 300 stitches, I think, in the hour, something like that. So any progress is progress. I really enjoy stitching on this, I think because it goes so quickly and you can see the definition of the fox already. I can see a wee bit of fabric see through. You can see a wee bit of fabric in the darker colours, but I don't think that will show up later on because when you wash it, the fabric should shrink anyway. I have used a fabric pen to mark my grids because I prefer to do that way. I picked up my car earlier in the week and I drove it to the warehouse. That's a store similar to the Walmart overseas. It's got a lot of different things in it like stationery, some food items, clothing, children's toys, gardening stuff, automotive supplies. So it's the place that we go and get anything that we need. It's the biggest store locally. I needed a new plug for my husband because I bought Dave a new iPhone because he was having issues with his iPhone 7. He couldn't hear the calls. So I bought him an iPhone 14. I really liked that you could put the two iPhones together and it would copy what was on his old phone onto the new phone. So there was very little I had to do. It was quite simple. It's not quite simple for him to use the phone. He's having a few issues. For example, he is used to a home button and he needs to swipe upwards to change out of his apps, and he is struggling with that. He can't always tell which is the right way up on his phone because he just has a backing bumper on the phone this time instead of a cover. So I might need to replace the cover, the backing bumper, and get him a leather cover like he used to have. The advantage was that it was a clear cover, and I bought him a red iPhone, so if he ever drops it, it would be really easy to find. He was saying that he wasn't hearing phone calls, and the only reason he knew that he was getting phone calls was because it was vibrating in his pocket. And I rang him the first thing this morning at about 5 a.m. to check that. Well, he was still home, and it seemed to be working fine for me. I did turn the volume up. I think some of the issue could have been that we've been having gale force winds here, and being outside in the wind, it might have just limited what he could hear, because he had it in under his overalls in a pocket under his polar fleece as well, so it was several layers, so maybe it was just very muffled. It's so cold here, I've had to turn all the heaters on in the house again, but that isn't abnormal for this time of year. We do normally need the log burner going until Labour weekend, and Labour weekend is this weekend, so I'm hoping that it'll start to warm up, but you never know. Mating starts on the 29th of October, so it's only 8 days away, and mating can be a bit colder, so that always has an impact on mating, for the simple reason there isn't quite as much grass growth, so the cows are doing it a little bit tighter, because you don't want them to leave too much residue in the paddock after you've grazed it, because the next round you've got too much rubbish from the last grazing, and that means that your milk production goes down. So it's a big tightrope that you're on. You have to have it just right, so to not only get your cows and calf, but to keep your production up. We had herd testing in the last week, and that is for testing the milk to make sure that the cows didn't have any infections or anything that we need to look at. It's testing mostly somatic cells, and it tests for the volume of the milk as well from the cows, so how much fat she produces and how much protein. If she is producing a lot more milk than other cows of her age, we might put her on once a day, because you want her to keep in good condition. So, birds in the chimney again. They actually might not be in the chimney, they might be sitting on top of the chimney, I'm not sure. But yesterday I even struggled to record any sound with my video because of the gale force wind. The chimney was rattling all the time. With mating, it means that we will have a AI technician come daily, and he will AI the cows that are due for mating that day. They have a very limited time. Once they get the semen out of the bank, it's frozen. They have to have it within the cow within 15 minutes. If the semen is out too long, it means it's not as viable, so the chance of them getting in calf is a lot lower. There's actually quite a lot of things that can stop the semen from being viable. For example, you can't tail paint after they've been inseminated. You have to wait at least half an hour. The AI technician can't be wearing perfume or any strong aftershave because that will actually kill the semen as well. So it's a lot more technical than you think it would be. And you're thinking, why don't we just put a bull with the herd? We do put a bull later on, but we have 6 weeks of AI insemination first, and then the bulls go in. And the reason for that is 500 cows, you need a lot of bulls with them. It's too many for 3 or 4 bulls to be able to do them all. They go lame quite quickly, the bulls, because they're not used to the walking. So you either have to leave the bulls in the paddock and bring the cows back to them, or they walk to the cow shed with the cows and they just stay in the yard while the cows are getting milked, and then you put them back with the cows. So it's quite tricky, especially it depends on your bulls, because bulls are quite towy and they're quite dangerous at times. So you have to be aware of the bulls at all times. We have our own bulls and we only use them for a year, maybe 2 years at the maximum, because they start to get a wee bit stroppy after that. It's definitely time for them to have a wee holiday. So they go to the local freezing works after they have done their job, so at least they go away happy. We are just starting to move some of the weaned calves to the runoff because they are 10 weeks old, and we still have a lot of calves that need to be fed milk, and there is a limited amount of milk for the calves. We have to hold the milk for 4 days after a cow calves. So any cow that shows that she's got an infection with the herd test, she will be treated by antibiotics, depending on what shows up in the sample. It depends on that for what antibiotic she gets, but it's always penicillin. And any milk for a cow that is treated, it has a certain withholding period. So we collect the milk and we dump it. It doesn't get fed to the calves because you don't want an animal in the future to have a resistance to any antibiotics. Any calves that show up any infections, they can get navel infections, or they can have pneumonia sometimes, so they develop a cough. So they're treated with penicillin as well. They have a wee injection in the butt, and when I was doing calves, I could never inject them because I'm allergic to penicillin. And because of my allergic reaction, I think we are super careful. No calves that are sent to the freezing works are allowed to have any penicillin milk or are allowed to be injected. with penicillin. There is a withholding period. And for meat, it is a long withholding period, so it's not worth it. So at the moment we're trying to figure out what bulls we're going to use for the cows. We know the main herd for the first mating or 2 matings, what we'll use, but we normally use some beef stock afterwards. We use Wagyu because we've been selling Wagyu calves this year, and we got $270 for a 4-day-old calf. So that's definitely something to consider when we're selling our herd, because as a longer period, they in calf with a Wagyu longer than they are for a Belgian Blue by about 11 days. And that's 11 days that you could have milk in the vat. So that's another consideration. We haven't sold our herd yet. Inflation's just gone up here, and the banks aren't as keen to loan money. So that means that we may not sell our herd. We just don't know. So 41 calves out of our 120 odd calves went to the runoff. And my husband was talking about earlier on, he was saying that he put them on the back of his ute. I'm going, because I said, did you go to the runoff? And he goes, yep. And I said, I didn't realise you were going today. And he goes, yeah, but I had to take those calves. And I'm going, And I rolled my eyes and I said, you do know that I heard the stock truck arrive, don't you? So we did have a wee giggle about that. And he was adamant that no, he took them. So, yeah, sure. I think he was telling a tall story then. And then I asked him again later on, I said, what did you take up to the runoff? And he had 4 bags of pellets he took up there with the pellet feeder. The advantage is with the pellet feeder you can have 50 kgs in it, and it's got a lid on the top so it stops birds from coming and eating all the pellets. Ducks especially there. Seagulls here is a big issue because we had 40 seagulls that we were feeding, at least 40. There was a whole flock of them. And then they would call all their mates to make sure their mates knew that there's feed. It was quite frustrating. So I made a fruit crumble. It was a berry fruit crumble this week. And I cooked 2 of them, and then the third one I thought I'll just leave it a few days and I'll cook it in a few days. So I went to cook it the other night, and Dave goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm about to cook the fruit crumble. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, the fruit crumble in the fridge isn't cooked. And he goes, oh, really? It's not cooked? And then he goes, it tastes fine. So I opened the fridge and took the crumble out, and there was a big square taken out of it. So, yeah, I may be teasing him a little bit that obviously I don't need to cook his fruit puddings because he's quite happy to eat them uncooked. To be fair, it just had rolled oats, some golden syrup, some coconut flour and some water in it, so with butter. So it's not like it had eggs or anything like that, so it didn't do him any harm being uncooked. He did heat it up in the microwave, so maybe you could say it's cooked. So yeah, I may be teasing him a little bit over that one. Admittedly, I do tease him a lot. I think that's the reason why we have been married for 31 years, is that we both tease each other and have some good laughs. We have been thinking about whether we will put solar panels up at the runoff, but we have heard that it takes 25 years for them to pay for themselves. So I'm not sure it's going to be a viable option. I definitely have to look into that a wee bit more and then work out if that's the case. With the increase of electricity, for example, here with the heaters going, we're paying $700 a month for power. So maybe they would pay for themselves a lot quicker. This house is a lot colder than our house because our house is all double glazed, and here it's single glazing and there is gaps underneath the doors. This house was built in 1975, so the ventilation then was more important. We are hoping this weekend that we might move some of the exercise equipment to the runoff because I can't use it at the moment. My walking's enough of a struggle, let alone exercising. And our son has just dislocated his shoulder again in the last couple of weeks, so he is still in a shoulder support. So he isn't able to exercise either. And Dave surely doesn't need to exercise with the amount of walking he does per day. We did put one of those step counters, and it showed that he walks over 10 kgs every day. So yeah, we decided it wasn't worth actually knowing. Sometimes he was walking 17 k's a day. It wasn't worth knowing. So it was good to pick up my car the other day. Dave took me to the runoff, so I was able to pick my car up. I'm sorry if I've repeated myself several times because I've had this conversation several times already, so I can't remember what I've said and what I haven't said. So I drove my car home and I felt quite lightheaded, so I was very lucky. There was a small packet of jelly beans in the car, and I was saying to Dave that I was lucky that the jelly beans were there because we'd just had a warrant recently, and they give a packet of jelly beans in your car after the warrant. The warrant is a warrant fitness to make sure that your car is within a standard. You have to have a warrant yearly, and if you have an accident when you haven't got a valid warrant, it means that you're in the wrong, and it doesn't matter whether you caused the accident or not, but you're still liable and insurance won't pay out. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on when it's due. So they gave us a small packet of jelly beans, and Dave was sniggering and going, yeah, that must be new. So I had to laugh over that one. I'm going, And I was teasing him about the fact that he doesn't share very well because I have never had any jelly beans in my car before, and he has done a warrant for my car a couple of times, and his truck has had the warrants as well, and I said, you don't share, and called him the jelly bean thief. So that has been quite amusing. Doesn't take much to amuse me, obviously. So the funniest thing is that I don't even really like jelly beans. I love Jelly Belly jelly beans, but they're quite hard to get here. Definitely don't have it in our local supermarket, and I have to buy them online. And Dave doesn't like the Jelly Belly jelly beans. He's quite happy with the cheap local ones, but I find them too sweet and I'd prefer the flavour or the different flavours with them. I would like to thank everybody that is watching this. I hope this works this time, because if it doesn't, I'm not sure I'm going to try a third, or maybe it's a fourth time. It is starting to become very frustrating. As you can see, it's going very quickly just doing the 10th stitch. I think that's what I really like about it. I do think the chance of having counting errors is a little bit more prominent. I know that while I was doing this, I did frog a few stitches a few times because I wasn't happy with where they were. I don't tend to count my stitches quite as much. You'll notice that I had a black fingernail on my little finger. I'm not sure how, but I was closing the door behind me and I had my finger in the way and I shut the door on it. So I am 52 this year and I don't know how to keep my fingers out of the way when shutting doors. That was not as funny as it sounds. So, yeah. But I will do the potion shop next after this and see if it works. I am not sure how much stitching I will do in the next few days, because Dave's actually got off for once. He's having this afternoon off. It's Friday the 21st of October, and he's having Saturday, Sunday and Monday morning off. So I'm quite surprised how many days he's having off, because it's unusual. But several times our relief milker was meant to milk and he hasn't because something's come up. So it'll be nice to have Dave home and to help with things, and for him to have a bit of a rest. Even the sleep-in will be really nice for him, because normally he's up by 4 o'clock each morning. Lately, I've still been up when he gets up. I haven't been sleeping much at the moment. I'm lucky to get 3 hours, 4 hours max. So he never knows when I'm going to be up. The advantage of being up when he gets up is he makes himself a coffee and he makes me a coffee too. So that's really nice. I'm very spoilt. So thank you for listening to me. I hope it isn't too bad. We will upload this shortly and then I'll do the potion shop as I said, and that hopefully will work. I started another piece yesterday, so I will be able to show that in my Flosstube update. I was hoping that every fortnight I would do a stitch with me, and the alternate week I would do my update. But if this is going to be such an issue with even saving the file, is when it's crashed several times. It's not even when I'm editing it. It's when I've saved it and it's just gone into cyberspace somewhere. Then I'm not sure I will be doing this every alternate week. Well, I'm not sure how much longer, so I